Hey everybody, I'm Koa.
I'm True.
And this is the Crew Movie Review. As you read from the title, we just watched Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And it wasn't that scary. I don't like scary movies to begin with. So it's just not my thing. But to me, it didn't feel that scary.
I think, maybe we should bring up to the forefront that, it was a screenplay by Guillermo del Toro. He doesn't do, horror movies. He does more, dark fantasy movies. And so it had more of a dark fantasy vibe with a little bit more of, mixed in with, the typical scary genre, which is not too typical of him. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why, it was a little awkward, an awkward of a movie, but I thought it was, a pretty, good movie to pass the time with, if you want to snuggle up with someone and, enjoy a scary movie. I enjoy a good scary movie. Right. And this was pretty decent, I thought. And the characters looked, the what do you call those? The creatures looked really pretty good. I thought.
Yeah, they're pretty weird creatures. No, I mean, it was well written. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a good story. I just didn't feel scared at all. It kind of reminded me more like when you go camping and you tell ghost stories around the campfire. It was more like that.
I think it's supposed to be. I think he meant it to be like that.
Maybe that's what he. And they were just being acted out and playing as these scary stories were being told. It stars Zoe Colletti, Michael Garza, Gabriel Rush, and Austin Zajur. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. It is a story by a novel written by Alvin Schwartz. I'm not familiar with his work. I don't really read a lot of books, so I cannot tell you.
I mean, I know there is merit in a movie starting a little slower because a lot of, Alien movies, the first Alien movie, how it starts slow and then it, builds up. It's kind of like that, so it was a little slower in the beginning, but it probably was trying to, I felt like it didn't do as much impact of it being a slower start than they intended it to be. That's what I felt like.
So what did you like about the movie?
I liked the characters. I mean, the creatures, or the horror part of it. I mean, the scary creatures. I think they could have done a little better with a couple of the creatures. I know you'll go more into detail about that because he had more issues with them, with some of the scenes when the characters face these creatures, and it's more like it definitely felt like one of those genre scary movies where one gets picked off one after another, and that seemed too boring and too done to death, and I felt like I was expecting a lot more coming from Guillermo del Toro. So
are you expecting a plot twist in there?
No,
something different.
No, just
I mean, that's a typical thing with a scary movie or slasher movie.
A lot of his
one guy gets picked off one at a time.
I feel like I know that's what I'm saying. I feel like he's not the typical director, I would think, and or producer, and I felt like he could have done maybe something more unique to it, a little bit more unique to it than what was in this movie. The creatures were great. The characters were okay. It was just a little bit boring of a plot, awkward ending.
I would say the best part of the entire movie was the monsters themselves. Yeah. They looked kind of scary-ish. I mean, they're monsters, but and the story was okay. Like I said before, it played out like a ghost story you tell around the campfire. But for me, that's all it really had going for it. It did seem. I mean, the bad points would be that I felt like it was slow. Not a lot of suspense. I didn't really feel for the characters.
Yeah.
I didn't really care whether they made
It was slow,
or
but it
not.
wasn't that suspenseful.
Right.
I felt like it was just like.
And
I don't know.
and in most scary movies, it's always the same problem with me. Is just like the plot holes are just it, and it's just like
It goes on and on about the plot holes.
well, I mean, reality. I mean, it's got to fit some type of reality. The laws of physics in a way, and to a degree, and just the laws of not physics, but just how people would really react in certain situations. Like a typical thing in scary movies is the hero or the main characters always drop the weapon. They attack the bad guy or the monster, and it doesn't work. They drop the weapon, and they run away. I was like, that is like so overdone. Like, why would you drop the weapon? Or why would you give the weapon to the bad guy or the monster chasing you or trying to kill you in the first place? It just doesn't make any sense. And they do it every time. And I just find it really annoying. It just turns me off when it comes to that kind of thing. Cause it's like
a good example of a scary slash fantasy movie that we really love is Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the most recent Cabin in the Woods, and that was very well done without adhering to the typical
those kinds of plot holes.
plot lines that scary movies have. At the
They actually
same
kinda make fun
time,
of
it makes fun of it, but at the same time, it still adheres to the general flow of how a scary movie should be. And I was expecting this movie to be somewhat close to that, or somewhat like that, where there's some uniqueness to it, rather than the
Right.
typical plot of hey, there's the last girl, the last girl plot line, so since we've talked about that it's not our favorite scary movie, what's your score gonna be?
I would probably give it a 5.
A 5?
A
Wow,
5.
a 5 is pretty low.
I know.
I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was enjoyable,
I most of that 5, almost 100% of that 5 just goes to the story.
Story.
Like just the whole campfire type of thing. I liked that feel of it.
Yeah, he knew.
But that's it. That's
Cohen
the only thing
knew.
I liked about it.
Cohen knew a little bit of some of the rhymes, like one of the movies. One of the
one of the scary stories they tell. And I don't want to give it away or anything like that, but it's towards the end of the video anyway. Is one of the scary stories is who's got my toe, or it's like a corpse looking for their lost toe, and I remember hearing that story or something similar to that as a child around the campfire with my family and stuff like that.
I mean, I didn't grow up in this American culture, so I had no idea. Like I couldn't reference back to something that is a familiar childhood memory, So that kind of lost a little on me, but the rest of the ghost stories, I felt like the Scarecrow story could have been done a little better in terms of, because it's scary, the Scarecrow, the way it's set up, the face, it looks really scary, but then it fell flat on the delivery of the story, like, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
But
So what would you give it?
I would give it maybe like a 7 in terms of horror movies. Yes,
Wow.
I would
That's
say
generous.
that's yeah, it is generous. I felt like it's an enjoyable. There have been so many bad scary movies that I would say for 2019, it's not a bad choice for a scary movie.
No,
But I
it's not a
can't
bad movie,
remember
just-
the last good scary movie I've watched, so I might be a little too lenient. I might be a little lenient on that, but it's compared to like most recent scary movies, it does rank higher than those, I would say. But I had a problem with the ending. Not a problem, but just a little awkwardness where the ending where it's, you know, they kind of end it as like a sequel, a series, and I understand it's based on a series by someone, you know. Maybe because of that, you know, maybe they're planning to do more videos for that, but more movies for that. But the way they ended, the way the continuation segment, and like, oh, you know, there might be more, is a little, you know, they did a voice-over on that, and you know, and it's just like, you know, oh, okay, oh, you know, are we really, you know, does it make sense? They still have the object that they supposedly banished the evil from, or the rage from, but you know, I mean, so what is this object, this book, I'll just say this book, you know, this book gonna do? What kind, you know, it doesn't leave me with a sense of, ooh, what's next to come, you know, what, you know. It's just like, it's like, how is that gonna work? Because they banished it already.
I mean,
like,
yeah, exactly. The story's ended. I mean, the movie is over. They ended the story. They gave an ending to it. So it's not like they left it open and you're like, well, what's happening?
What's going to be the new antagonist, though? But, you know, in the next movie.
But I think they did leave it open for possible future movie, depending on how well this movie is received.
Yeah, and I don't like that part, because it's like
but they did give you closure, though. The movie does end.
Yes, but then they could have done a more sequel, you know, if they're gonna do a sequel, if they think that they're gonna do this, don't just do a little voice over at the end, go like, hey, you know, it could be a sequel. It's like, you know, like, have to have a little suspense building to the next one, you know. I felt like, you know, like something like Avengers, they do a really good job with like building suspense for the next one, or you know, maybe we've been spoiled by stuff like movies like that, but I just felt like a voice over at the end saying, hey, sequel, maybe, you know, maybe, even though it might not quite work, because what are we looking forward to? You know, what's the antagonist, or what's the conflict that could be coming up, you know.
Yeah. So
anyway, so I give it a 7, you give it a 5.
I give it a 5. I say wait and rent it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, rent it, you know, I would say.
I mean, unless you're a really big fan of Guillermo del Toro, or really like scary movies and you're just a diehard fan and watch all scary movies, then fine, be my guest, go watch it. But if you're not really a fan of scary movies, you won't be disappointed by skipping this one or waiting until it comes out. So.
Right. And I think it would even be like, not, you know, I think it wouldn't be that bad for a family to watch, because there was a family in the theater watching it with us, and those little kids weren't even scared. They were like,
yeah, exactly.
No screams.
There was monsters, but there wasn't scary. So
yeah, and it wasn't creepy. I mean, it wasn't creepy either, but it was like it was a dark fantasy movie, like, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So
I guess we'll leave it there at that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it up to you guys. If you've seen the movie, if you liked it, if you have any comments, please go ahead and comment below.
And subscribe if you want to.
Alright, thank you guys and have a good night. And that'll conclude the Crew review. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
And watch out for our reviews on these movies next week.